Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about how dealerships are fighting back against the government and how they want to implement EVs. A pretty interesting topic. With that being said, let's just get right into the video. So for today's video, I'm going to try to take the Ben Hardy opinion and throw that out because I feel like just being completely neutral on this topic is the best thing to do. So hopefully we can make it through. Anyways, to set the stage, over the last couple of years, dealerships have been making massive profits because of the supply chain issues, right? Microchip issues is the biggest thing for vehicles, and so because of supply and demand, right, vehicles have been selling for large premiums, which have made dealerships massive amounts of money, so you'd think they'd be fat and happy at this point, but they're not, right? The reason they're not is because they know the situation isn't going to last forever. Before this happened, vehicle sales were on a slow decline, and so dealership profits were on a slow decline, and so they expect that trend to continue after this. But the reason they're upset at the federal government doesn't have to do with that, because the federal government doesn't really, they have something to play in that situation, but the federal government is trying to push EV sales, and dealerships don't like this whatsoever. First off, the federal government is spending $7.5 billion as part of the infrastructure package to build a national charging network, which should actually help a lot of people out, because right now, if you don't own a Tesla, it's hard to find reliable charging. And so it's, obviously pushed the whole Tesla monopoly thing pretty hardcore. And so this will now allow people to buy from other brands and know that they'll have reliable charging and they'll have a decent charging network to go towards. So it should make EV adoption a little bit better. And sorry if the light keeps shaking. The cat is deciding to be extremely annoying in today's video. Can you get down? Get down. There. No, she didn't listen. Cats. Anyways, continuing along. Dealerships are very negative about this because they don't want to have a massive push for EVs because they just don't think it's practical. So the government's whole thing long-term, and when I say long-term, by 2030, is to have 50% of vehicle sales be fully electric, right? That's a big deal. And over 60% of dealerships don't think that this is going to happen, and they just don't think that it's practical, right? They don't think that buyers are ready for electric vehicles like what the federal government wants. And so dealerships are kind of pushing back against the federal government and pushing against automakers and saying, hey, slow down. This doesn't make sense. And I can completely understand this from a dealership perspective, because what they see is they have to hire new technicians to be able to handle, right, working on EVs, and they have to build new infrastructure with the dealership, charging stations and different stuff back in the service department to be able to handle EVs. So it's going to cost them a lot of money to transition to selling more EVs, right? That's difficult. And again, finding help right now in today's market is very difficult. Like nobody wants, well, people want to work, but there's not enough workers for how many jobs there are right now. So there's a whole issue with that, right? And dealerships see that. And so they just don't think it's practical. And, on top of the cost that they have to pay up front, they just don't think that their customers want that. Right now, less than 10% of new vehicle sales are fully electric. And so going from less than 10% to 50% in less than a decade seems just very unrealistic. And so they just don't think that the infrastructure is going to be able to ramp up in time to be able to accommodate for this. And they're like, okay, this is going to kill our profits, and it's going to make our customers mad, and it's just going to put us into a bad situation all around. And some dealerships are so doom and gloom that they say that this is going to throw us into an automotive recession because of everything that's being pushed. So like that's like how angry some people are going. And so the fix in dealerships' mind for this is, and when I say dealerships, again, owners of dealerships, the fix for this in their minds is that the federal government slows down and then automakers slow down, and they just let consumers do things. So like, I think that most everyone is in support of extra infrastructure from a charging station perspective, because most automakers sell at least one EV, and so that'll just help out consumers. But I think that they're wanting the government to not spend so much in terms of tax credits for EVs and to just let consumers and competition basically push EVs forward. And the way that this would happen is, if we have a really good charging network, then more people are going to be more likely to buy EVs. And then on top of that, right, you're going to have different companies trying to build the best EVs. So this is going to, hopefully bring the price down a little bit. This is going to make them more reliable. Competition is just a good thing. And so then if EVs become better, more reliable, cheaper, and we have a good charging network, then naturally people will buy, rather than trying to just like force people to buy these cars, or, doing these crazy tax incentives, which, again, we'll save my opinion for that in another video, right? They just want it to be kind of like more of a natural trend. And so they think that this would actually push EV sales, potentially higher than projected, not in the same time frame, but like in a relatively reasonable time frame. Most dealerships think that by 2030, 15% to 30% of vehicle sales will be EVs. And so they think it's going to be a lot more of a, not truly linear, but a little bit more of like a linear trend rather than exponential, which the government is trying to push for. And so, yeah, again, there's this pushback and there's this wrestling. And so it's kind of interesting to see different parties, because right now the federal government is all about pushing EVs to help out with reducing CO2 emissions. And then you have the automakers, right, that have this image to maintain. And so, they're just trying to stay in line with that because they want to obviously be in line with public appeal so that they don't look like they're doing the wrong thing. But then you have dealerships, which ultimately are kind of like, the thing that supports this whole system that we're talking. Obviously, they don't support the entire government, but the point that I'm trying to make is dealerships are the business on the ground. They're the front line, right? And so because they're on the front line, they see everything that's happening, right? They're not detached like the other two parties are. And so they're able to see like, hey, this is going to work most likely, and this is not going to work most likely. And so I wouldn't just go and say that they're just crazy and that they don't know what they're talking about. I think that, when you look at the information we're getting from all parties, then you can kind of come to like this, middle ground opinion and be like, oh, okay, so that makes sense, that doesn't make sense, and all that kind of stuff. And I guess I'll probably have to make like a part 2 in the future where I kind of talk about what I think makes sense and what doesn't make sense. But yeah, for now, that is pretty much what's happening. And I want you guys to let me know what you think about this topic, and I'll see you.